Good evening. Let us begin quietly and very simply with this. You may stop being the victim of your own thinking. Don't allow that. When you stop to think of it, mind was given you as a servant, as a tool, not as a tyrant. It is not ordained that your day, your health, your decisions, your very peace be governed by a parade of fears and rehearsals and accusations marching through your head. There is an I in you, nearer than breathing, that is not the thought, that can govern thought. Remember that at the outset. Now let me illustrate that. You know the experience. Morning begins, and before the second cup of coffee the spiral starts. A sudden fear about money, then a memory of yesterday's sharp word, a rehearsed speech you will never give, a regret that pricks, a plan to outmaneuver a problem that is not yet here, a quick argument with an imaginary person, and on it goes. The day has hardly taken its first breath, and already it is lived in response to noise, not in response to wisdom. After enough years of watching this in ourselves and in others, you see so much of it that you know definitely. The trouble is not the event. The trouble is the surrender of government to mind. Now, this evening I am not interested in handing you a theory to admire and then forget. The practical aim is immediate. That you leave here with a way, moment to moment, in the very hour the mind begins its tyranny, to restore dominion. It isn't too difficult to feel quiet while you sit here with me. The difficult thing begins an hour later, when the next fear whispers. Therefore, our work tonight will not be grand philosophy. It will be a simple practice, repeated, by which you reclaim your position. And this is the central pivot upon which we turn. I have a mind. This mind is mine. Never invert it. Do not say, my mind made me, or my mind won't let me. Your mind is not your life. You, something the Master called I, are the life of that mind. You can say with understanding, this mind is mine. I use it. I quiet it. I refuse its authority when it strays. I accept its service when it is illumined. That possessive identity is not arrogance. It is accuracy. Without it, you drift. With it, you begin to govern. Again, we are moving toward a definite illustration and a definite practice. In a few moments, I will show you what to do in the very second the spiral begins, so that in 20 seconds you can be back under inner government. And later, for a few moments, let us meditate. Not to force the mind, but to feel that I which is not the thought, and which, when acknowledged, restores dignity, composure, and direction. For now hold this. You need not be the victim of your mind. You can learn, this very hour, to govern it. Now, before we go further, let us be honest and take a sober inventory. Not sentimentally, not with complaint, just truthfully. Look out upon human life as it is widely lived. Sin that compels actions we later despise. Disease that racks bodies and frightens families. Death that tears the fabric of love. Accidents that come without warning. Poverty that humiliates and constricts. Loneliness that makes a crowded world feel empty. Mental torment, fear, anxiety, self-accusation, the ceaseless rehearsal and regret. After enough years of ministry, you see so much of this that you know definitely it is not a small or occasional matter. It is the common weather of a mind left to govern itself. Now stop to think of this. If in those very conditions the presence and power of God were actively operating, you would be driven, morally, into the unthinkable position of blaming God for your fear. Blaming God for the cancer, blaming God for the accident, blaming God for the empty cupboard and the weeping in the night. And you know in your heart that cannot be. It would make God the author of the ills of men. Therefore, we must accept the only conclusion that preserves both sanity and Scripture. These conditions mark not the activity of God, but the absence of conscious God contact. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Where the Spirit of the Lord isn't, there is mortality. Never forget that measuring rod, for it will steady you when appearances try to argue otherwise. Again, let me illustrate the point. When a room is dark, we do not philosophize about the metaphysics of shadow. We acknowledge one plain fact. There is little or no light present. We reach for the switch. So it is with the inner life. When sin, disease, fear, and confusion occupy the field, don't embroider theories. Recognize the simple diagnosis. There is little or no conscious presence filling that moment. The mind, left alone, will enthrone itself as a false ruler, and with great authority call its tyranny reality. It will present its pictures, its verdicts, its catastrophes, and then insist, "This is truth." Don't allow that. The human mind can register phenomena, collect data, rehearse memories, but it cannot of itself confer liberty, because liberty is not of the finite. So when you find yourself in the spiral, when thought is talking loud and fast, do not accept it as a disclosure of who you are. Take it as a disclosure of absence. It is not the presence of God announcing your doom. It is the absence of conscious contact announcing your need. That is all. And as soon as contact is established, you will witness the first evidences, the quieting, the softening, the shift. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Of thought, of nerve, of decision, of circumstance. Where it isn't, there is mortality, fear, compulsion, reaction, fatigue. This is not to condemn you. It is to give you the dignity of a true diagnosis. For if the trouble is absence, the remedy is contact. And that, as we shall see, is in your reach, hourly, even in the very second of the spiral. Now stop to think of this. When a thought rushes in, fear of tomorrow, regret of yesterday, who is it that notices it? The thought itself? No. The very fact that you can say, "I am afraid," proves immediately that there is an I, and there is a thought about fear. They are not the same. There is an awareness that beholds the thought come, that feels the contraction it suggests, that can accept it, reject it, or simply let it pass. Thought does not witness itself. Thought cannot step outside to examine itself. There is an awareness, nearer than breathing, that is not in the buzz of thinking, that can look, discern, and quietly say, "No," or "Yes," or "Not now." That awareness is the beginning of dominion. Now let me illustrate that. You are seated, and a memory appears with a sting. Instantly there is a tightening. In that very instant, another fact is present. You are aware of the tightening. You can see the picture form, and you can feel the body's response to the picture. That seer of the picture is not the picture. That knower of the tightening is not the tightening. Already there are two standpoints available to you. One is what Paul names the natural man. The mind, the senses, the picture, and its reflex. The natural man receiveth not the things of God, not because he is wicked, but because, being mind-governed, he has no faculty for the infinite. The other standpoint is the spiritual man. the I of your own being that beholds, that discerns, that can govern the mind and its pictures. Do not send that I away into history. Don't think when Scripture says I, that it referred only to Moses on a mountain or to the Master walking Galilee. The word I is closer to you than breathing. It is the name of your own life. Life itself is God. That which says within you, I, is the life of your mind and the life of your body. Never forget that. The reversal begins here. Not mind governs I, but I governs mind. Not body governs life, but life governs body. Keep those antitheses clear, or else you will drift into slavery without knowing it. Again, when you stop to think of it, you do not conquer mind by mind. To fight a thought with another thought is to remain in the same cage, rattling different bars. The shift begins with recognition. I am the awareness of this thought. Therefore, I am not compelled by it. This mind is mine. I can look at its fear without lending it my consent. I can watch its rehearsal and refuse it my belief. Don't allow the mind to name itself your master. Acknowledge, quietly, the I that is beholding. That simple recognition is already an act of government. It won't be noisy, it won't be dramatic. But at the very point of acknowledging I, the tyrant is unseated, and you will feel the first evidences, the slight loosening, the capacity to pause, the liberty to choose. We are preparing for practice. In a moment, and then an hour from now, you will not try to overpower the mind. You will take your rightful place and let I govern mind. And you will find that the battle fades where recognition appears. Now we come to the lever by which the gate swings. Possession, ownership, identity stated rightly. Say within yourself, not as a boast but as a sober fact, I have a body. I have a mind. This mind is mine. Never forget that. Ownership carries two things with it: responsibility and authority. If it is your body, you do not worship it and you do not abuse it. You govern it. If it is your mind, you do not fear it and you do not obey it. You direct it. You assign it work. You release it from self-appointed rulership. And you hold it to silence when silence is required. Don't allow any other arrangement. How then does dominion get lost? Very simply and very quietly, by a slip of identity. The mind begins to speak as I, and we permit it. It throws up a picture and says, I am afraid. It tosses up a sensation and says, I am depressed. It rehearses a story and says, I am obsessed. And we, forgetting ourselves, answer to that name. The instant we answer, the mind has borrowed your pronoun, your authority, your life, and for that interval, it plays the sovereign. Don't allow that. Make it speak in its own voice. When fear appears, name it rightly. The mind is presenting fear. When moods roll in, name them rightly. The mind is moving in a fog. The difference may seem only verbal. It is not. It is jurisdictional. It restores the throne to the I of your own being. Now let me illustrate that. You are at your desk, and a bill comes due next week. In an instant, the mind projects a film. The number swells on the screen. The account shrinks. A future conversation with a creditor appears. Then a still image of failure. Then a memory of childhood shame when you could not provide. Then a swift montage of losing the house, explaining to the family, standing small. None of this is present fact. Not one frame is in the room. And yet, watch the body. The breath shortens, the stomach tightens, the palms dampen, shoulders lift toward the ears. The body behaves as if under orders from a general that does not exist. What issued the command? A picture. A voice you allowed to use your pronoun. Stop to think of it. If at the first flicker you had said quietly, "This mind is mine. It is throwing pictures. It is agitated. It is not I," you would have altered the chain of command. You would have turned to presence, and in that turning, withdrawn consent. Then the picture may still flutter, but it cannot requisition your breath, your blood, your action. You can say to the mind, as you would to a younger servant, "Thank you, be still. I will hear only what is given of spirit." Never forget that. Don't allow mind to speak as I. Require it to speak as it. That single correction, possessive identity, will save you hours of tyranny. Again, after enough years of it, you see so much of it that you know definitely. Harmony begins at the precise moment the false identification is broken. Not after you win an argument with thought, at the moment you stop giving it your name. In that instant, breath returns of itself, the shoulders lower of themselves, and, more than that, a different wisdom begins to announce a next step that is actually possible. Then, when the mind is addressed as instrument, and the I is acknowledged as governor, evidences follow. Not fantasies, not bravado. Evidences. You will see it. We will speak of that presently. For now, hold this as a sacred fact. When you say, with understanding, "This mind is mine," you have already begun to restore dominion. Now at first, this will be faith. It will be a conviction you choose before you can prove it. This mind is mine. I turn to presence. In that first week or month, it still is in the realm of faith. But as you make the turn, as you acknowledge I within, evidences begin to appear. What in our language we call demonstrations. Not fireworks, not a dramatic voice from the ceiling. The evidences come in the form of a sudden hush where panic stood, a widening of perspective where your vision had narrowed to one frightening point. The curious inability of a thought to hook you as if its barbs were blunted. A sense, unmistakable, of inner government reseated. Where there was rush, you find pace. Where there was confusion, you find a next right step. Where there was accusation, you find a gentler appraisal joined to a firmer will. Now, let me illustrate that. The phone rings with the name you had dreaded to see. A week ago your stomach would have turned and your tongue rehearsed 3 defenses at once. But today, after that quiet inward claim, "This mind is mine, I turn to I am," you feel, first, a stillness drop. Not a stupor, a poised alertness. The words come without edge. The other voice softens. The subject that had seemed impossible finds a small, workable arrangement. Did you make that happen by force of thought? No. After enough years of it, you see so much of it that you know definitely. The mind does not quiet the mind. Presence quiets the mind. I am, asserting itself, radiates authority without argument, and the mind, recognizing a higher government, yields. Again, watch for evidences in small places, because there the honesty is pure. In traffic, where horn and hurry once governed you, there is a pause and a breath, and strangely, the lane opens. In the hospital corridor, where the smell of antiseptic used to bind your chest, a word rises. Be still. And with it a release, and even the nurse's face appears kinder. The bill is not yet paid, the diagnosis not yet reversed, the child not yet home, and still the inner weather changes. That is not imagination. That is government. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty to see, to choose, to act under guidance, even before outward facts are fully arranged. Never forget the practical promise. You are not waiting for a perfect life in order to be at peace. You are establishing a principle of government that operates in any circumstance: boardroom, kitchen, courtroom, morning commute. As these evidences begin to pile up, your conviction deepens. You do not merely believe, you know by repetition that I, not mind, governs. And one bright day, or night, the very presence announces itself more directly. But that is ahead. For the moment, mark this transition well. If you keep trying to heal the mind with the mind, to out-argue fear with more thought, you remain in the cage, rattling different bars. The mind itself, being finite, cannot embrace the infinite. Therefore, our next step requires a different faculty than the faculty of the human mind, an ascent into that I which is before thought. We will speak of that now. Now we say it plainly, without embroidery. The mind, being finite, cannot embrace the infinite. Therefore, the mind cannot know God by reasoning, cannot apprehend I am by analysis, deduction, or argument. The mind can compare, calculate, remember, project. It can organize facts, even brilliantly. But infinity is not a fact to be arranged. It isn't something that can be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled and then indexed. It requires a different faculty than the faculty of the human mind. Never forget that. If you insist that mind shall climb to God, you will only circle the same hill and call the circling progress. Now let me illustrate that. Not long ago, a brilliant scholar, an Oxford man, decorated with degrees, honored in his field, received a medical verdict stamped incurable. He took up his instruments, books, papers, models, data. He arrayed the literature. He measured probabilities. He graphed outcomes. And having reached the limit of what comparison could reveal, he announced, calmly and tragically, that the future held only annihilation, so best face it like a rational man. Do you see? The intellect reached its border and mistook the border for truth. The natural man receiveth not the things of God, not because he is uneducated, but because the mind itself, being finite, cannot embrace infinity. Where the Spirit of the Lord isn't, there is mortality. Verdicts of doom stated with impeccable grammar. Again, and this is important, our age has given us witnesses on the other side. When inventors, artists, composers, scientists break through, ask them where the answer came from. They will not say, I reasoned it step by step and then, by logic alone, created what had never been. No, they will say, I worked to the edge, and then it came. Edison dozing in a chair with steel balls in hand. Einstein speaking of a happiest thought that arrived unbidden. The composer hearing a theme as if it were already complete. The painter seeing the finished canvas before a brush touched it. That is not the calculating mind. That is inspiration. Spirit touching consciousness and then using mind and hand as its instrument. Life governs the body. I governs mind. Don't allow the instrument to claim authorship of the music. Now stop to think of the practical point. If this is true in laboratories and studios, how much more in the inner life? You will not think your way out of a spiral by adding more thought. You will rise above the spiral by touching the source that governs thought. You will not argue fear into silence. You will stand in I am and watch fear lose its voice. The mind will then take its rightful place, arranging the next phone call, drafting the letter, balancing the account, but under orders it did not write. And this is why we practice. Quietly. Regularly. Not to sharpen the mind until it can seize infinity, but to acquaint ourselves with the faculty that already knows. The presence that, when acknowledged, announces itself and then performs things for you that you yourself could never do. At first it will be occasional, like a breeze on a still day. As you continue, morning, hourly, before sleep, it becomes dependable. Faith becomes evidence. Evidence matures into a living certainty. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty of mind because mind is governed. Liberty of body because life governs body. Liberty of affairs because order flows from a center you did not manufacture. We are preparing now to make that practice explicit. Now we are very practical. It isn't too difficult to feel a quiet here, or in those few minutes when the house is still. The difficult thing begins an hour later, when the phone starts, the messages pile, the news shouts, the body tires, and the suggestions of the mind return with their old authority. Don't allow that to discourage you. Expect it. The battle is not hard meditation. The battle is repeated forgetting. Therefore, we put in place a simple discipline that makes remembering likely and forgetting rare. First, the morning. Devote the first 10 or 15 minutes of the day to conscious recognition, before news, before messages, before conversation. Sit up, feet to the floor, and quietly, not straining, acknowledge I. Not many words, just this inner liturgy. I. 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 Let the words sound inside without effort, as if you were hearing it said for you. Then add the possessive that restores dominion. This mind is mine. I turn to presence. Be still. Do not try to think your way to God. Just acknowledge, yield, consent. 2 or 3 minutes may be enough at first, but make it first. Before a single headline writes its script across your mind, let I write the headline. I and my Father are one. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Again, scaffolding. Make the practice hourly at first. On the hour, or before a meeting, before a call, before you open the inbox, pause. 20 seconds will do. Breathe once, softly. Withdraw your name from the mind's chatter. Say within, I. This mind is mine. I acknowledge presence. Then act. If you miss an hour, take the very moment you notice as your hour. Never say, I failed. Say, I remember now, and remember. That is how we win this, by returning. How do you measure progress? Not by visions, not by length of sittings, not by how eloquent your words. You measure by the degree of success in remembering. Yesterday you forgot for 3 hours. Today you forgot for 1. Tomorrow you catch the slide in its first minute. That is progress. Where remembrance is, there is liberty, of thought, of tone, of choice. Where remembrance isn't, there is mortality, reactions, compulsions, fog. Never forget that measuring rod. Now stop to think of the kindness of this. You are not asked to carry a monastery on your back. You are asked to glance inward, hourly, and say, I. That glance reseats government. And when the thought storm rises, and it will, do not wrestle. That is the mind trying to heal the mind. In that very second, return to ownership and to presence. Say within, this mind is mine. I withdraw consent. I turn to I am. In a few moments, I will show you how to do that in 20 seconds, in the very midst of the spiral. For now, build the scaffold. Morning recognition. Hourly remembrance. Before sleep, a final acknowledgement. Freedom is not an event. It is constructed. Simple, repeated, faithful remembrance of I. Now we make it exact, because in the spiral, there is always an instant of choice. The mind offers a suggestion, fear, resentment, lust, worry, self-pity, and pushes a contract across the desk asking you to sign it with I. I am afraid. I am angry. I am tempted. Don't allow that. The whole tyranny stands or falls on whether you lend your name. In that instant, 20 seconds will change the government of the moment. First, ownership. Quietly, inwardly, and without heat, say, this mind is mine. It is not I. I govern it. Keep the tone firm, not emotional, not a shout. Authority doesn't need noise. This single recognition removes the crown from the mind. It makes the mind speak in its own voice, not in yours. Never forget that. Jurisdiction precedes quiet. Second, disengage without suppression. Do not try to stop the thought by force. Do not start a wrestling match in the dark, thought against thought. Remove consent. Let the suggestion pass as a sound in the street, not a command in the house. You would not run outside to argue with every passing horn. So, too, with the mental horn. Acknowledge a thought is passing, and do not sign your name. Breathe once, softly, and allow the body to feel you are not taking orders. Shoulders lower, jaw softens, breath returns. That is already dominion. Third, turn to presence. One sentence will do. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Let it be more than words. Let it be a pivot, out of head-level agitation into the inner stillness that is already here. Do not hunt for a feeling. Acknowledge the presence that cannot be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled, yet governs. Say within, I, and yield. The shift is subtle, like a weight set down on the floor. You are not making peace. You are recognizing the peace that is. Fourth, bless and release. If the suggestion shows you a person or a situation, do not rehearse the scene. Rehearsal is how mind keeps its throne. Instead, bless. Father, into thy care I release this one. Or, the grace of God sustains you. The wisdom of God governs this. Then let the curtain fall. No second act. The blessing severs the hook and returns you to your work under government. Now let me illustrate that in time. The message arrives with a barb. Second one, ownership. This mind is mine. It is not I. I govern it. Second 5, disengage. A thought is passing. I do not sign. Second 10, turn. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. I. Second 15, bless. The grace of God be with you. I release this. Second 20, act. Answer or wait as guidance indicates. The outer scene may not yet be altered, but inwardly the throne has been reseated, and actions now proceed from clarity, not compulsion. Again, you may do this 10 times in an hour. Do not be ashamed of that. Be grateful. Every return is victory. The conquest is not one grand battle trumpet. It is the continual restoration of government. Each time you refuse to sign your name, each time you turn to presence, you loosen the habit chains of years. Where remembrance is, there is liberty. Where you forget and sign again, there is mortality. But the very moment you notice, you are back at second one. This mind is mine. Begin again, and government returns in seconds. Now, for a few moments, let us meditate. No strain, no reaching. Just a simple, receptive posture. Sit as you are, feet at rest, hands easy, the body unforced. Let the breath be what it is. We are not trying to make anything happen. We are acknowledging what is. Gently, within, repeat the word, I. Not loudly, as if you were hearing an I come up within you of its own accord. I. 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 Let it sound inside like a bell struck softly and allowed to ring. Between each I, no reaching, no looking around the mind to see if it is cooperating. Just the acknowledgement of life itself saying its own name. If it helps, imagine that you are seated way up here, above the head, figuratively speaking, quietly observing. Below, the mind may move a little, like traffic along a road. Pictures may flicker, fragments rise and fall. Up here, you are not the traffic. You are the witness, the presence, the quiet that is not moved by movement. From here, say again, I. I. This mind is mine. It moves, I am still. Now let the I widen into assurance, as if you were hearing the inner voice that has always been your life. I will never leave you, nor forsake you. I go before thee to make the crooked places straight. I am thy refuge and thy fortress. I am thy light and thy salvation. Whom shalt thou fear? I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness. Be still and know that I am God. Do not try to answer these words. Let them answer you. The mind may toss a line, what about tomorrow? And even that can be received inside this larger atmosphere. Notice it and do not sign. In this presence, the fragments have no authority. They are movements in a governed room. I am the governing presence. I am. Again, without effort, hear it nearer than breathing. I am with you in the night watches. I uphold you with the right hand of my righteousness. I am thy peace. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth. Fear thou not, I am with thee. Neither do I condemn thee. I am the bread of life. I am the door. Be still. Let the shoulders lower. Let the jaw soften. Let the breath move as it will. You are not creating quiet. You are discovering that quiet which cannot be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled, yet governs. Meditation is not controlling thought. It is letting I am be felt as the presence that governs thought. In this awareness, mind becomes servant without struggle. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Now, a simple gratitude, not pleading, not promising, just recognition. Thank you. Presence is established. Contact is made. Harmony follows contact. And as we open our eyes, nothing need be forced. We carry this government with us into the next word, the next step, the next hour. Thank you. Now let us speak of living under government. When the throne is reseated within, life on the surface takes on a different pace and color. Decisions become simpler because they rise from a single center rather than 5 competing voices. Reactions grow slower, not sluggish, but measured, because the trigger has been disconnected from your name. Compassion appears without effort because you are not defending a frightened self. You are witnessing from presence, and presence has no need to strike. The mind, then, takes its rightful employment. To type the letter, to plan the route, to reconcile the figures, to remember the appointments. It ceases to issue edicts about your worth or your doom. It becomes an excellent clerk and a poor king. Don't allow it the crown again. Now let me illustrate that. You walk into a meeting where once your heart would have raced and your tongue would have hurried to fill every silence. Today you pause, acknowledge I, 2 seconds only, and the pace of the room shifts. You listen first. You speak once, clearly, when the word is given. The result? Less friction, more accuracy, and, this is the marvel, less fatigue. Government conserves energy. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty from compulsion, liberty for wisdom. Again, as you no longer believe the body governs life, you begin to witness that life governs the body. Calm touches the nerves as surely as a hand stills water. Breath, once hijacked by suggestion, resumes its natural depth. Digestion, which had been conscripted into the service of fear, returns to its quiet work. Sleep, formerly a wrestling match, becomes a yielding. He giveth his beloved sleep. Do not make a project of symptoms. Acknowledge government, and the body, your body, you know, not mine, your body, responds to the rule of life. Never forget that. Life governs the body. The body does not govern life. Guard this, because the mind will try to steal the seal. It will claim the quiet as its achievement and write a trophy, pride. Or it will compare you with another and write a verdict, discouragement. Or it will rehearse yesterday's lapse and write a sentence, shame. Don't allow that. Keep the possessive clear. My mind is presenting a boast. My mind is suggesting a comparison. My mind is replaying a failure. The I of you is not rising or falling on the graph. The I of you abides, and mind returns to its bench when named correctly. Give the evening its seal. Do not retire to sleep without acknowledgement. Sit on the edge of the bed, 3 breaths, and say within, I thank you. Review nothing to fix, simply return the day to its giver. If faces arise, bless and release. Into thy care. If a problem flickers, acknowledge government. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And let the curtain fall. Close the night as you opened the morning, in recognition. That closure writes peace into the hours to come. Set your expectation aright. Not perfection in a day, but a new government becoming normal by practice. Harmony is restored as contact is maintained, morning, hourly, before sleep. When you forget, return. When you fall, rise in the same breath. This mind is mine. I turn to presence. After enough days of this, you know definitely. Mind and body are servants of life, not rulers of it. Walk in that order. Acknowledge him in all thy ways, and he shall direct thy paths. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Thank you.